Why are people afraid to die? And let's face it, people are afraid to die, are they not? They will do anything to avoid it. They will eat right. They will exercise. They will take medicine. They'll do anything they can to keep from dying. People don't want to die. Well, what's the reason? What are they afraid of? Are they afraid of pain? Possibly. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of people do die in pain, do they not? But here's two things to consider. Modern medicine, particularly in our country, goes a long way toward eradicating pain. And if death is truly the end, once you die, are you going to remember it? No. So personally, I don't think it's pain that is the thing that scares anybody. Well, maybe it's the separation from friends and loved ones. I don't think that's it either. Because if death is really the end, when you die, you're going to remember your friends and loved ones? No. I want to tell you the reason most people are afraid to die. Here it is. Because people have a gnawing, nagging, persistent feeling that maybe, just maybe, death isn't the end. Maybe there is something beyond the grave. And you know, there's really two good reasons for thinking that there is something beyond the grave. Number one, intuition. For want of a better feeling, it's that gut feeling. All right? Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11 says this. He, that's God, has made everything beautiful in its time, and he has also set eternity in the hearts of man. You know what that means? It's God that put in you the idea that you're not going to just live 70, 80, 90 years and that's it. There's something inside of you that says, hey man, you're going on and on and on and on. But you know, it's also logical to think that there's life beyond death. I am a big, big, big C.S. Lewis fan. Anybody else here like C.S. Lewis? Everybody loves him because he wrote, the Chronicles of Narnia, but he was also a very deep theological, wise individual. He actually preached a sermon once, and believe me, I would love to have sat through this one. But it's called The Weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, of Glory. And in this passage, he's actually talking about the existence of heaven. But since heaven exists where? In eternity. His logic holds here. Listen. He says, is there any reason to suppose that this desire for heaven offers any satisfaction to it? Some people say that being hungry does not prove that there will be bread. He says, I think it may be urged, though, that this misses the point. A man's physical hunger does not prove that that man will get bread. He may die on a raft in the middle of the Atlantic. But surely a man's hunger does prove that he comes from a race that repairs its body by eating and inhabits a world where eatable substances exist. In the same way, though I do not believe, I wish I did, that my desire for paradise proves that I shall enjoy it, I think it's a pretty good indication that such a place exists and that some men will inhabit it. A man may love a woman and not win her, but it would be a very odd thing if the phenomenon called falling in love occurred in a sexless world. In other words, this desire that Christians have for heaven, it's not a dream. God put it there, and that desire is fulfilled because such a place exists. And people fear death because if heaven exists, guess what else exists? Come on, folks, use your brain. If heavens exist, what else exists? Absolutely right. That is why some people think that, man, the best thing you can do, the most important thing you can do, the ultimate thing you can do is stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, because as long as you were alive, you're not thrust out into eternity. But Jesus tells us as Christians That we are not to be afraid of those who can kill the body and do nothing else, because the fact of the matter is, man's power over you, Christian, ends at your death. I like to study World War II. Blame the History Channel, which in its early years I think was called the All Hitler Channel, because that's all they ever did was show things about Hitler. But Hitler wasn't alone. He had a buddy by the name of Mussolini. And when Mussolini and his mistress were killed, the Italians were so tired of war. They were so tired what Mussolini had done to his country that they abused and violated and mutilated and did all sorts of horrible things to the corpses. And I can understand their frustration, but here's the sad thing. Mussolini didn't feel any of that. Because he was what? He's dead. And after you die, human beings cannot do anything to you. Now understand, in the early passages, or in the early sections of the scripture that we are talking, Jesus is talking about our motivations. And he says, do not live motivated by fear. But he says, if you are going to be motivated by fear, let's understand who you ought to fear. Don't fear man, because after they kill you, they can do what? Nothing else. He says, if you really want to be afraid of someone, be afraid of God, because after he kills the body, he's still got the real you. And he can throw that person in, he can throw your soul, he can throw the real you into hell. Well, God can punish, but Jesus is not emphasizing punishment here. He's not talking about fear. He says we ought to be motivated by something else. We ought to be motivated by the fact that God indeed cares about us and that he loves us. Now, Jesus uses two things here that some of you might think are kind of strange. He compares us to sparrows. He says, sparrows are sold for such and such, but not one of them falls without God knowing about it. And he says even the hairs of your head are numbered. Now, Jesus is not trying to say that God puts some kind of a monetary value on you, or that he's some kind of a bean counter. What Jesus is trying to emphasize is this: God knows you. Substitute your name. God knows you intimately. And he is concerned about what happens to you. Do you believe that? I'm afraid that somebody might hear that and say, all right, preacher, I've got a question. For those of you in the Sunday school class who's afraid a question might be raised, I'm going to raise it. All right, preacher, if God is so all-fired concerned about his people, then why does he let bad things happen to them? Why does he let them be persecuted? Why does he allow 170,000 of them to be slaughtered every year? Give me an answer, preacher. I got your answer, folks. You want to know what it is? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not God. I don't know what the answer is, but I want to tell you some things that I do know. And I need you to listen for this. I want to share with you just a few things that I know. Number one, everybody dies. You understand that?